Hello. Thank you for joining me here on the Political Napalm. Boy, do we have a bit of a week to go through over here. We're going to get to the Mark Robinson stuff. We're going to get to the Matt Gaetz stuff. But one of the things that we should start off with over here is a conversation Rich Lowry had with Megyn Kelly. Yes, that's right. The Megyn Kelly that Trump said and blood was coming out of her, you know what. Megyn Kelly is now quite a rabid Trumper and basically debases herself almost daily in her support for Trump and is one of these very active, very vehement Trumpers and acts like she can't understand why people dislike Trump and is extremely positive about what Trump does. But you may have heard a little bit about this particular interview here with Rich Lowry. So the basis is that Megyn is trying to defend what J.D. Vance said when called out for lying about what is going on in these Ohio towns with the Haitian immigrants, specifically Springfield. As you probably are aware from the debate, which I had covered on a recent episode here on the Political Napalm, Trump brought this supposed Haitian issue onto the grandest stage of them all, saying they're eating the cats, they're eating the dogs, they're eating the pets. Woof, woof. And, you know, it has been memed to death right now. You have pro-Trump people memeing it, totally not even really understanding why they shouldn't be memeing it. You have the opposing side memeing it because it is completely ridiculous. The person who was responsible for the initial post where she believed her cat had gone missing and that it wound up in the hands of a Haitian who did nefarious things to it, has since then said that the cat came home, was discovered in her basement. She has retracted the post and is so sorry for all of the damage that it caused and creating this ruckus. This is very similar to the Italian woman who took 2 shots from Iman Khalif during the Olympics in women's boxing and quit and apologized profusely for bowing out of that match, making it look as if Iman was male and shouldn't be competing in women's boxing and is, you know, the uproar that potentially she's trans, potentially she's a man. This whole Russian scandal that came out from the International Boxing Association, which is headquartered in Russia, and posted a story that did not back up their data. And all Iman needs to do is simply submit to a test and clear everything up. And remember, she lives in Algeria, where that society is not pro-LGBTQ by any sense at all. Iman is a woman, and that Italian lady was extremely sorry for the ruckus that she caused, as is the case here in this single point of origin for the eating the cats and dogs story. Now, there was a not Haitian in Ohio that was very much on something or completely psychotic that was found to have, and without going into detail because it's really sad, injured a cat and then may have been eating it. But that person was not Haitian and it was not in Springfield. So you have some things that are a little bit based in reality, twisted and wrapped up like a pretzel stick to use as a narrative to attack these legal Haitian immigrants that the town is defending, saying they're great workers, they don't do drugs, they show up on time, they break their back to do work. Then, you know, one accident happens and they want to say, oh, well, they're these terrible drivers who are unlicensed or not licensed properly. Meanwhile, the results of police searches show that accidents have gone down in recent 2 years, supposedly during this swell of Haitian immigrants. So the right is yet again demonizing their population against a big bad. If it's not the Democrats, then it's trans people. If it's not trans people, then it's LGBTQ as a whole. If it's not that, then it's immigrants. There's always a big bad to be mad at, and then to weaponize that hate against. Well, Megyn is trying to defend JD when he was caught out for lying, and JD said, well, sometimes you have to tell these stories to draw attention to it so you can get the truth. And what JD is saying, yeah, well, sometimes you got to lie to attempt to shine a spotlight on something. But when you are being asked to shine a spotlight on another lie by lying in the first place to turn the spotlight on and aim it, everything is a web of lies. Well, Megyn is trying to defend that and say, oh, the media is getting it wrong. She's saying, yeah, he said BS things because he's trying to call out a real issue. There is no real issue. There is a issue in the fact that Springfield is slightly overwhelmed in the population boom, and that is true, and that has been proven, but these other things are false. And JD is not trying to draw attention to the fact that Springfield is overwhelmed due to the influx of the population. He's just trying to make negative stories, which then wrap back up to attacking Kamala and Biden for immigration policies that cause this. But watch what Rich says here. Warning, it is a little bit of offensive language, just letting you know.
But finally, he said something to the effect of, look, if we have to create stories in order to bring attention to what's happening, the media, he admits they made it up, right? As opposed to, and if you listen to the full clip, he says, by drawing attention to what's happening on the ground, it's just, as this line goes online, you don't hate the media enough. Go ahead.
You remember Alternative Facts with Kellyanne? They did the same thing. She wasn't saying you make up fictions and pretend they're facts. You bring other facts to bear in the debate that are being ignored. And that's what he was saying. And I think it was in that interview where Dana Bash says, the police have gone through 11 months of recordings of calls, and they've only found 2 Springfield residents calling to complain about Haitian migrants taking geese from ponds. Only 2 calls. And I think one lesson in this whole story, people don't care about geese.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and end it there because that is the point. I will say, in potentially his defense, he may have gotten tongue-tied and used the I instead of the I in migrant. He may have been attempting to say migrant and said it as migrant. However, when slowed down at 25% speed, it's pretty clear. It really is. I'm not saying I do both sides ism, but I like to give things a little bit of a benefit of a doubt because things are not always as cut and dry as any media makes it sound, whether it's left media or right media or independent. It is potentially possible maybe he was looking at a script and he let his mouth get ahead of his brain and sort of stumbled over it and wanted to accidentally say migrant. However, when you slow it down, you do hear some R's in there. It sounds like more some double G's and everything. It's not a good look. And this is typically not a vocal or verbal faux pas you make unless you are using the word commonly. For not racist people, this is an abhorrent word that is not in somebody's vocabulary. It's not in their brain vocabulary. It's not in their spoken vocabulary. This really does sound like Rich thinks with that word at some point. It is a word that I personally myself would never trip into because it is not a word that I would ever use in any conversation whatsoever, private, public. It's not a word that occurs in my head. It's not a word that I would ever think of if I was cut off in traffic and almost gone into an accident and the person was black or something. That wouldn't even be like that. knee-jerk, angry kind of word for me because I know how bad that word is. So it just doesn't even occur in my brain. Even if I'm quoting something, a movie or a song where that word is said, doesn't even happen. Even when I'm around people who like, no, dude, I get it. I know you're not going to mean anything by it. I know what you're quoting. Still don't want to do it because I never ever want to have this kind of trip. And I think a lot of people think that way and know how bad that word is and how offensive it is. And it even never occurs to them in their head to use it. This admittedly looks like a pretty bad trip up here by Rich Lowry. And of course, Megyn just, goes along with it because why not? So that was early in the week, and that was pretty bad. Aside from the Mark Robinson stuff breaking yesterday, and I kind of wanted to wait until today to do this because I didn't know if he'd drop out. He said he wanted to stay in, even though there's been a lot of rumblings of pressure for Mark to get out. But Matt Gaetz, things are coming back to haunt him over here. Perhaps for a little while he thought he was off the hook. Kevin McCarthy has talked about it before, and that is perhaps one of the reasons why these two do not get along at all, is McCarthy knows and believes and understands what Gaetz has been attacked for, and yet again, it seems to be coming back. If you don't know Matt Gaetz, he basically looks like Butthead from Beavis and Butthead. He hails from Florida. He has this weird son named Nestor. That there's been some crazy definition as to exactly what Nestor is to Matt Gaetz, and it's a pretty sketchy situation there. It also seems to be a very similar thing to Mike Johnson and his one child that does not look like the rest of his children. When Matt got married, I believe his wife is named Ginger. He was taking pictures of the two of them where it looks like Ginger is hardcore passed out. And a lot of people are like, this does not seem very cool of him. She's managed to stick by him, but I believe Ginger's siblings are like, Matt Gaetz is creepy. Well, in the past, Matt has been attacked for using Venmo to pay for underage girls to show up at parties, and may have even trafficked them across state lines, which is then tags the the trafficking statute there. Aside from whatever crime was committed, now you're trafficking. He was the only one who voted against a bill that was against trafficking many years ago, so that looks suspicious. So now it is coming back that Matt Gaetz attended a drug-fueled party in 2017 with underage girls that were at the center of the alleged sex trafficking scandal, according to legal documents that are in a Florida federal court. And they dropped shortly before midnight on Thursday. More information is over here with Yashar Ali, Brian Taylor Cohen. And it's not looking good for Gaetz. It is one of these things that you could say if you're a Republican and you're on the right, you're like, oh, they just want to smear all of these firebrands, all of these people who were vocal and everything like that. You're just attacking these people who are getting up in the faces of Democrats and liberals, and it's all just a smear campaign to discredit them. Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert are also firebrands, and Lauren Boebert, when people go after her, it is because of the action she displayed and was caught doing, the infamous Beetlejuice play. Marjorie Taylor Greene is, yes, she is subject to the same attacks, similar attacks to what is happening with Gaetz, where it has been said that she is strayed out of the bonds of her marriage and she had sex with a tantric sex guru and a fellow gym rat and everything like that. So you could say it seems to be this consistent and constant attempted smear against Republicans and everything. Yet, like, for example, in Boebert's case, there's legal filings. There is stuff. She has a record with the police especially when her husband was the one who exposed himself to her at a bowling alley when she was underage, and the amount of times that she has been arrested and was failing to show up for court dates and everything. So, for example, Boebert was writing her own destiny. Marjorie Taylor Greene's ones, yeah, they do seem to be rumor. There's perhaps not a lot of proof in them. Anonymous on Twitter has threatened to expose Marjorie Taylor Greene several times and talk about what's going on for her. So at least with Marjorie, maybe it's in rumors, but a lot of these other people, it's been stone cold proven facts. And we will see what happens with Getz. And when it happens that these things are real, which I do believe is the case, and Getz's case, a lot of people are going to have to deal with the cognitive dissonance and realize, no, it's not just an attack, it's a reality. And let's take a look now at what is going on with Mark Robinson. So Jesse Waters said, well, I never heard of Mark Robinson, yet Jesse interviewed Mark Robinson. We're going to see about that in a second. Let's see what Jessica Tarlov has to say here.
And what's a really interesting state in there? North Carolina, which is a big target for the Democrats. And we just found out an hour ago that the lieutenant governor there, Mark Robinson, who's running for governor,
never heard of him,
who Donald Trump called Martin Luther King on steroids, posted on a porn forum called Nude Africa that he's a black Nazi, expressed support for reinstating slavery, and detailed his sexual arousal from memories of peeping on women in public gyms, and he still fantasizes about it. He also has an Ashley Madison account.
How dare you kink shame?
Sure. That's a great reaction. So Josh Stein was likely to win that race anyway. If they get Mark Robinson to drop out, his name is still on the ballot. But this makes North Carolina even more in play for Democrats. And this, again, is evidence of the type of candidates that Donald Trump thinks are good for the country. Martin Luther King on steroids, someone who says he's a black Nazi.
But he would obviously.
But what?
Let's state the obvious here.
Yeah.
Do you think Trump actually knew this guy was on porn sites?
My point is that Donald Trump likes anyone who likes him, and he doesn't bother to
That's
do the
called
work.
being human.
No, it's not. A lot of people like me who I don't like in return.
Like who?
Like,
I don't
tell
want
us
to
now.
name names.
Go ahead.
So the point there is everything Jessica said is true. Everything Gutfeld thinks he's a comedian. He's just a failure. He's not funny. You hear Jesse say, never heard of him, which is completely ridiculous because Jesse has probably heard of, at the very least, Trump saying, this guy is Martin Luther King on steroids and announcing him as such and all that. The other part of it is Jesse is interviewed. So it almost sounds like Jesse is being sarcastic about the typical Republican and very specifically the Trump way of dealing with things of anytime something bad has happened or somebody is being roasted on a spit, Trump is like, never heard of him, don't know. Jeffrey Epstein, who? Maxwell, who? It almost sounds like Jesse is parodying Trump in saying that. It almost sounds like he's not really meaning it, but knowing Jesse, he probably is. So yeah, Waters, never heard of him. And here you go. Here is the interview between Jesse Waters and Mark Robinson. If you don't know much about Mark Robinson, he is the lieutenant governor of North Carolina. We currently have a Democrat governor here. Prior to that, we were dealing with a Republican governor by the name of Pat McCrory. Pat McCrory is a slime bag. He's a scumbag. He cost North Carolina dearly when he was in power. He enacted the bathroom rule, which said you need to go to the bathroom of your birth gender, not your current gender. And that cost North Carolina dearly, tons of money. Acts like Bruce Springsteen were not coming here when that happened. I think maybe even Elton John was one of them. I believe it was an NCAA finals or semifinals were not taking place in North Carolina because of it. A lot of entities and businesses and people were backing out of their association to North Carolina because of it in protest. He also did something that affects perhaps the more everyday person. It's easy to distance yourself from that and say, well, I still am my birth gender, so I don't see how that affects me, or, I don't understand what it's like to go through that, so I'm just not even going to care about it. It is one thing to attempt to distance yourself from that and not attempt to put yourself in the shoes of another person. But one of the things that he did that I think almost anybody can put themselves in the shoes of was he messed up unemployment badly. North Carolina's unemployment prior to that had been relatively middle of the road, if not maybe shading on the side of being somewhat solid. When Pat McCrory came into power, he said, okay, we are going to cut down how much unemployment insurance somebody gets and for how long they could be on unemployment. Literally did it in half. It used to be you could get X amount of money spread out over the year. He lowered the limit and then said it's now going to be 6 months instead of a year. And then when the unemployment numbers dropped, he patted himself on the back and said, look at me. I did such a great job. I'm such a great financial Republican. Look at this. I totally fixed unemployment in North Carolina. Well, the problem is, no, we didn't. When you hit that 6 month mark and you are no longer receiving unemployment salary or unemployment insurance, you drop off the roll. You are considered a non-entity at that point. You are neither employed nor unemployed. So you are not a statistic anymore. So if 10 people would have previously been unemployed prior to Pat McCrory for a year, 10 people on unemployment. Under Pat McCrory's rule, those same 10 people are unemployed, except at the 6 month mark, if they haven't gotten a job, they are not considered unemployed anymore. So he's like, I fixed it. We had 10 people, now we're 0, but only for statistics. Those 10 people are still unemployed, and now they're panicking and freaking out because now they don't have unemployment. And for somebody who was terminated not due to something of their own, company buyouts, reduction in force, all of that kind of stuff. And mind you, you can't get unemployment when it's your fault. Like if you're showing up late or you punched your manager in the face or something like that, you're not getting unemployment. So you may be unemployed for a reason not related to you whatsoever. Nothing you could do about it. Struggling to find a job. And now you don't even show up as a statistic. And you watch the governor pat himself on the back and say, I did it. And you're like, no, you didn't. I'm still unemployed and now I don't have money. So imagine the stress and strain he put on families in doing that. Now, unfortunately, it's never really been fixed. Roy Cooper has not changed the way unemployment goes, other than, of course, when we were dealing with COVID. That's different. But if Mark Robinson gets into power in North Carolina, it's going to be McCrory all over again. So the comments that he was making on these forums, everything ties back to this online name, this online moniker, minisoldr. This minisoldr is tied to addresses that Mark Robinson has used, email addresses that he was signed up with his first name and last name, the path and his picture. The path is very, very clear that minisoldr ties back to him. And these are not recent. As you can see here, 2010. This is not Back to the Future. You cannot go into the past and insert his accounts on these sites back in the 2010, 2008, 2012 and everything, and fake him being there. If an account showed up last week on one of these sites, maybe then you could say, oh, this is crap. He's trying to claim AI did this, and he's also, people defending him are saying it's basically Oppo research, except this was leaked by Republicans, not Democrats. So this is not opponent or opposition research. This is the calls coming from within the party. So he has referred to himself as a black Nazi. He said he thinks slavery is good and they should reinstate it. He's claimed to get up in ventilation systems of a school and realized that he was over a girl's locker room and looked down on them and watched them dress and undress for 2 days, and admits on the third day that the ladder was locked, so he couldn't do it anymore. These comments and these stories, I will not get into the stories. Suffice to say is they're extremely graphic. However, in summing them up, he says that he was getting himself sexually involved with his wife's sister, and they were happening most often at the Holiday Inn Express. Originally, when I saw HIE is the abbreviation in his post, I didn't know what it was, and then somebody was like, yeah, that's the Holiday Inn Express. I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. He was involved with the wife's sister, who would sometimes call in a friend, so he was involved in threesomes. He admitted on these sites that he liked watching transsexual porn, and he said it's like taking the dude out but leaving the dude in a way, and yet he is one of the most prolific anti-LGBTQ people around, especially within North Carolina. He's just a scumbag when it comes to it, and he's also the one who was up in front of a church congregation and said some folks need killing, and Democrats are not going to understand this. He, as you can see here, the full name was used on Nude Africa, including the same email address that is a web that ties him into everything: YouTube, minisoldr, Discus or Discuss, minisoldr, Black Planet, Pinterest, his tweets over here prior to being political, saying violence against women is now a sport because of a transgender wrestler. And let me tell you, these stories on these websites truly are like a very, very, very graphic letters to penthouse. If you've never heard of that, the letters to penthouse always seemed fantastical. Like, you would never believe this. I woke up the other day and I was having a threesome. They almost seem like they're made up to empower sort of these fantasies, and they don't actually sound particularly real. So either Robinson was making them up to be impressive, or he was actually engaging in these things that, yes, did include water sports and include very graphic descriptions of the sex that he claimed to have been having at the time. As you can see here, CNN and others are not publishing the more graphical or the graphic sexual details of the story. Here it is. I like watching tranny on girl porn. It takes the man out while leaving the man in. Yeah, I'm a perv. There was calls for him to step down. He didn't. I believe the midnight time came and went, and he has not left the race. He's probably handing North Carolina over to the Dems this year. He was already losing against Josh Stein. He's going to lose even more now. His page, when I pulled this up yesterday, and it still seems to be doing it today, yesterday it had some errors, but today it's saying there are no events, and this page has essentially got nothing going on for it. He has issued a statement saying that, this is AI. I didn't do this. This is a smear campaign. It came from Josh because he can't stand on his record, so he's just attacking me. It's AI. No, AI didn't do this. AI does not time travel and put your online moniker into the past and associate it with these places, including Ashley Madison. If you don't know about Ashley Madison, it is a website designed to help people cheat. And when I heard about it in its first run, I was always disgusted by the page. I hated the fact that a page existed in order to help facilitate cheating on a significant other or spouse, a wife, a husband, a partner. Ashley Madison got shut down. And when it did, there was a hack that revealed the addresses of the people who had signed up for it. And prominent figures and politicians and happily married, mostly men, got revealed to have been going to the site. And it didn't look good. Another funny thing came out about it is most of the people who made accounts on the site were men. The ratio of men to women, I think, was like 80%, 20% at the time of that. So it was just dudes being jackasses and really not a lot of women there. So it was a meat market with mostly meat, basically. Well, then Ashley Madison came back and a commercial started again, and I was disgusted all over again after being happy, after laughing at the reveal of the data of Ashley Madison and being like, yep, that's exactly what you would expect. The site came back and it was depressing again because I am not a fan of cheating and these extramarital moments, and to see that there's a site out there that causes it, I think that's garbage. Especially to see ads for it, to turn on a TV and see an ad for Ashley Madison. Like, it's disgusting. It makes me think of, like, what are we coming to when you're promoting this, watching Law and Order on USA or something? So Mark Robinson has an account on Ashley Madison. They're trying to claim it's bullshit and all this other stuff when it's not. And here's a screenshot of a reply that he'd given at some point in time where a British person says, I don't get why Americans can get machine guns but not healthcare. And there's Mark Robinson with his minisoldr talking about it's the Second Amendment that did it. And here was the thing that we'd already discussed, that CNN is reporting only a small amount of the actual stories on these pages and everything. Look them up if you feel so inclined. They are extremely torrid. I'm not going to sit here and claim to be puritanical and say they are disgusting. People are free to do whatever they want in their rooms of choice with their partners or their cheating partners and everything like that. He presents them in a very sordid way. It is very unfiltered language in which Mark is on these forums describing what he is doing to the wife's sister's friend that is adding to the threesome, what his kinks are, what is being done to him by these ladies, what he's in turn doing to them, what gets them excited, what gets him excited. It's not for the faint of heart. Just be warned about that. If you do go looking into his statements, just be aware. So that is it for me, folks. Let's call this episode of the Political Napalm closed. Monitor the Mark Robinson and the Get stories closely because I feel they are not over yet. So keep your eyes on these two. It'll certainly be interesting. Thanks for stopping by, everybody.